Hello, everybody.
Who is Arlene Mitsui?
That's Glenn's wife.
That's my better half.
It's Glenn's
I
better
know.
half.
I know that.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
So, welcome everybody. We're just gonna give a couple more minutes for folks to sign in. Um, I think we had quite a few people registered for this session, and I was told by Glenn that only a third of them were relatives or married to him. Is that correct, Glenn? Did I get that number right?
Well, I see Aaron's mom, Polly, is here.
That's the other third is
So
Aaron's
now
family and friends.
so now we can start because she's the most important.
Exactly.
And Natalie and Al are like my uncle and aunt.
Oh, hello, hello.
Hi,
I love
Mom.
that people have their cameras on too. That's so nice.
It's
That's
very nice. Hint,
wonderful.
hint.
Wink, wink. Um, okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. So, I'm Kimiko Mar. I am the executive director of Japanese American Memorial Pilgrimages, and I am super excited to have these two artists who volunteered to do a panel for us for Tadaima this year, Aaron Shigaki and Glenn Mitsui. Aaron and Glenn, take it away.
All right. Well, I'm Erin Shigaki, and I'm a Yonsei artist and activist. I'm working primarily in public art these days, but I'm doing a lot of ceramics and working in a lot of different media. And my organizing work is around the Chinatown International District in Seattle and its preservation, and also around the Japanese American community locally and nationally, regarding running the Minidoka pilgrimage, working with To Do for Solidarity on, all the nightmarish stuff that's happening with immigrant detention right now. And yeah, I'm going to show you a bunch of my work. And then Glenn's going to do that. And you can feel free to ask questions sort of throughout our presentations or at the end. We'll have a little more time. This is a nice small group. I like it. And I'll let Glenn introduce himself.
Hello. I'm Glenn Mitsui. I'm a sensei. So you all have to speak up if you ask questions because I'm hard of hearing because I'm so old. I'm a Heart Mountain, Tule Lake, Topaz descendant. Um, See, I started as a graphic designer. We had a studio in Seattle called Studio MD. We had a Filipino, Chinese, and a Japanese partners. So we had great potlucks. Most of my work recently, since 2017, has been mostly working with my cousin Satsuki Ina on a project called Paper Flowers. From there, that led to working with a Wakasa Memorial Committee and Nancy Ukai and that amazing group of people. I call them the badass aunties of San Francisco. Um, and then from there was born a project called the Wakasa Spirit Stone, which I'll talk about in the presentation. And that has kind of led to another chapter in my career of filmmaking. Working with Brandon Shimoda on a film called Dust right now, which will be out soon. So I don't know what else to say except here's Aaron.
So I didn't mention, but I think most people in this room know I am also a descendant of the Japanese American World War II incarceration, Minidoka on both sides of my family. And oops, let me get this going. That's really influenced what I'm doing right now. And I this is something new that I wanted to start us out with, to sort of go along with a regular land acknowledgement. And Glenn and I are on Coast Salish land, and I think it's important for us as descendants of Japanese immigrants to remember that. But this is a First Amendment acknowledgement, and we begin by acknowledging the fundamental freedoms enshrined in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. We recognize that our gathering today is made possible by the enduring rights of free speech, religious liberty, press freedom, peaceful assembly, and petition. The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We acknowledge that these rights have not always been equally protected for all people, and that their defense requires constant vigilance and commitment. We honor those who have defended these freedoms throughout our history, including artists, arts workers, and everyday citizens who have defended these freedoms for all. So that's the spirit that I'm coming at you from. I am a child of Seattle, and I consider my spiritual home to be the Central District, just a little bit east of the Chinatown International District. I think in my mind, they're really connected. They were both redlined areas of Seattle. And I spent a lot of time in the same house that my dad and his siblings grew up in, and that is the house of my Shigaki grandparents. And I kind of didn't realize how special the place was until I was older. I didn't realize that it was a house that um, a white friend took care of during the war, and collected the rent from a white family while my family was in Minidoka. And so that, my dad and his siblings had a place to come back to, and then I had a place to be, like right in the heart of the neighborhood. And I've been sort of reflecting on how lucky I am that so many people in our community decided to come back to Seattle, and that we were able to hold on to some of our homes and hold on to, of course, our churches and the big Japanese language school, places that have always nurtured the community and continue to do so. So this is like not information that this crowd needs, but this is sort of, from the little yellow house on King Street to the high desert of southern Idaho and these horrid conditions. Our community from Seattle, Portland, Alaska, were shipped off to. And in my work, I like to talk more than the conditions that existed there, but sort of the psychologies. And we know that there was this like move toward loyalty to the United States, and lots of people volunteering to serve once they were allowed to. And then there was a draft, and then there were resistors of many sorts, and including those that were jailed inside of Thule, the jail within the jail. And I like to hold up all of these things. And I also, to find balance in my work, I like to think deeply about the ways that our community tried to give, especially the children, a normal life, and, created classrooms and art making and entertainment of all kinds. And I love the pictures of Obon in camp. To me, it feels like resistance, because the reason why we were jailed in the first place was, for being Japanese and for holding this culture and this language. And so it feels, every time I see these images, and those there's some really beautiful moving pictures too. I feel I feel the ancestors, and this is going to connect to something that Glenn is going to talk about later. and then sort of my personal joy connected to the camp is around the ways that my family made it through. My dad was born there, delivered by a horse veterinarian, and my other grandparents that you see on the right were matched and married there. So I am really grateful that life went on. And I also think that it's important, and I'm really happy that a lot of different people are digging into this, especially now, like what happened after the war ended and how this chapter did not end for our community immediately after the camps closed. Um, I think there's a lot of important storytelling to be done here. And I like to show this slide because my family is frequently not named. This picture has been used in a ton of places, including at the Interpretive Center at Minidoka. And for some reason, they were, their names were not attached to it. So I've been trying to work on correcting that. So in my art mind and work, this is my guiding statement. My North Star is to tell the Japanese American story in memory of my ancestors and in service of the liberation of all people. And the things that I started with, like this is the very first public art piece I did for Duncho on the side of their building there on Jackson Street, using a Dorothea Lange image cropped out and printed at 11 feet high, made quite a splash on the street. And I think a lot of people really felt the power of seeing these faces. This is sort of an important moment that she captured. It was not, those posed photos of Ansel Adams that are inside of camp, but it is before they're going into the assembly center prisons. And I think there's a lot of raw emotion on the faces of people in those pictures, including one of Satsuki, Ina's mom, or I think there's several of her in that collection. So I'm very interested in really digging into all of the photos that we're very lucky to have from that period. I went on and put up some artwork in the Chinatown International District in Nihonmachi Alley, and I've been very happy that the Wing Luke Museum and other groups have folded it into their tours, to give visual illustration to the kind of education that the Wing is doing. And I'm so glad that my muse, Natalie, is in the Zoom room. You can see her here visiting this image of herself and her mom. This is like one of the most famous images of the incarceration, in my opinion. Uh, it was, of the Bainbridge Island community being forcibly removed. Um, so I put that image up at the Pacific Bonsai Museum here on the left. And then this is oops, on the right is a lesser known image that's in the Densho archive as well. And this is Natalie and her cousins, um, some years after camp, I think in the 50s, and they're in their brownie outfits on Bainbridge Island there. And I love the pride and I love their faces. And I really love having a relationship with Natalie and her husband Al through this work. So this is the full set of posters that went along with that one that includes Natalie's image. And I did this with a couple of Asian American friends during the first Orange Man administration when there was so much anti-Asian rhetoric. Um, the city of Seattle, even though they knew that attacks were happening to Asian people and neighborhoods were boarded up, they would not fund a project. So we decided to put it together ourselves and got some money from the county, and Wing Luke supported us and also SCIPTA. So It's always a matter of just rolling up your sleeves and getting stuff done. And, you know, just to sort of go back in time, we know that there's this history that preceded the incarceration for many years, the 20s and the 30s, where um, folks started to feel um, jealous of the economic success of Asians. And threatened by it. And these are newspaper headlines from our backyard in Bellevue, Washington. And a man named Miller Freeman owned these papers and was a big agitator for the removal of Asian people. And so I was first invited to Bellevue to be part of a show and talk about the Bellevue Japanese American community. And I made these two oversized sculptures. Um, and I tried in my interpretive statement to mention the fact that the Freeman family still owns all of downtown Bellevue and to talk about those newspaper headlines, like how he was involved in fomenting the anti-Japanese feeling in the community. And oops, somehow my statement just didn't get printed. I don't, they just don't know what happened. So that was sort of the first trouble I had in Bellevue. Um, and unfortunately, there was a Japanese American man who was running the city who I won't name here, but he did not stand up for our story. Um, and then I was so surprised. Then I was invited back to Bellevue, this time to Bellevue College, and I put up the same image of the small Dorothea Lange children. And then I made sure that I put up myself my statement about the history in Bellevue. And lo and behold, a couple days after I had put this work up, someone went up and neatly whited out the sentence about Mr. Freeman. And this is how it reads, just in case you want to judge its anti or judge its accuracy. After decades of anti-Japanese agitation led by East Side businessman Miller Freeman and others, the mass incarceration of Japanese Americans included the 60 families, 300 individuals who farmed Bellevue. Yeah, so it turns out that the person who whited that sentence out was a high-level administrator at Bellevue College. She lost her job, the president lost her job. The college tried to, take control of the narrative, but luckily we have Stan Shikuma and other awesome Seattle JACL people on our side. So we quickly organized a healing ceremony of our own, and we invited students of color from the BC campus to join us. We invited survivors to join us. And you can see a picture of my dad standing next to the person with the pink hair. And, we just tried um, to give ourselves consolation. Like someone was trying to tell us how to tell our own story, and it was remarkably painful. Here's a couple of other images. And by the way, this gathering was right before the pandemic hit, and people were really nervous about coming out into public, but there were like 300 people there, and it was quite moving. So then, this year, on the eve of the inauguration, the whole alley got hit in this very violent way with black paint. So we've got art lining both sides of the alley, and here you see Mrs. Hayashida and Natalie's faces totally covered, as well as the others. Um, and so again, unfortunately, we made the news, and unfortunately, we, have to deal with the fact that somehow our story, our resistance, the way that our community is speaking up against the carceral system and other injustices is really threatening to some people. And I think it's very interesting that this is happening continually in Seattle, a so-called liberal bastion. And I think I think it was a real wake-up call for a lot of people. I think a lot of people learned about the incarceration from the Bellevue instance, but then, a few years later, um, when this happened, and this was, I think it's happened once more this year, not quite this badly, but I think it's been a bit of a rallying cry, and I hope so. So again, healing ceremony that our community put on. And also, last day of remembrance, Sudu decided to do an action, and a bunch of us dressed in period clothes and then occupied that same space. We were able to get that black paint off of that vinyl, which was wonderful. But this was a really remarkable action that we had, in what is left of old Nihonmachi Japantown in Seattle. And I was really honored that my dad wanted to walk with me. And again, I think we really felt the power of what our ancestors had gone through. So, I've done other work. This is about the University of Washington students who were pushed off of campus, along with everyone else. And I love that this is a mural that I put together with a couple of friends. That's my good friend Finesse. And then we also had a community paint event to do some of the lower designs. And that's really my favorite way to work. People are excited and willing, and it saves a lot of my back. I'm not sure how many big murals I'm going to do anymore. I'm aging out of it. Um, and then Glenn is going to talk a lot more about work regarding the murder of Mr. Wakasa and other individuals in the various Japanese American prison camps. But I was really glad to be involved in the Wing Luke's exhibit a couple of years ago called Resistors, A Legacy of Movement from the Japanese American Incarceration. And we decided to have a whole wall about this murder because it's so important to how we tell the story. And we know that there were recordings that Mini Okubo made in her sketchbook and then published. Um, our colleague and friend Kiku Hughes has written about it, and now it has become a huge story. And if you tune in tonight at 6:30 p.m., you can hear the full saga of the way that the Wakasa stone has been rediscovered and how we are trying to get careful, thoughtful treatment of it. So I have been able to make a couple of models of the stone for various actions and various times. Oh, here's the first one. This was before it was dug up, so it maybe doesn't hold the right shape, but it felt important to me um, to make something with my hands to share with the committee. And I later made a larger one that you see here sitting on the ground at Topaz when we did a ceremony there in 23. So, I obviously care a lot about the healing and education uh, for our community and for other people, but I really am interested also in pushing forward our story and tying it together with those of other communities. Um, and there's so many ways that like these parallels run. And like this is a literal parallel image of Jackson Street after the community was forcibly removed. And then in 2020 during the uprising. And my friend Scott and I were invited to decorate the boards in front of the historic Jackson building where we have a studio. And we decided we wanted to do a BLM mural, that offers support from the community. And I will say there was a little bit of pushback. People said, "Oh, can't we do something more hopeful?" And I said, "You know what? There's nothing more hopeful than Japanese Americans standing in solidarity with Black Americans. Like Paul and Craig said we could do whatever we want, so we're doing it." So that's what happened. We made sort of an altar like space for some of our slain Black siblings, and we made a statement that graphically references those removal orders that were all over the West Coast. Um, Scott and I also did a big piece that's in the Seymour Museum that talks about the direct comparisons between the Japanese American community and the Chicano community. Some Chicano farm labor, used the same barracks that we were incarcerated in. There's so much overlap with the way that our communities have grown and fed this country. Um, and then, of course, right now we're really strongly walking in the movement space for to stop this bleeding hell of detention. Another mural, this is on the historic Japanese language school, and my friend Kenji and I plugged in not only Japanese and Japanese American symbols, but also other liberation icons to share a fuller story of the community. And this is the third time I was invited. Well, actually, I won this opportunity with my friend Mari Shibuya um, to do a permanent mural about the Japanese American community in Bellevue. And, we were instructed to do something about the community in specific, but we were able to talk our way into doing more of a broad tapestry, including the other communities of color who've really built this place. Um, Native American farmers, Chinese railroad workers, Black coal miners, all sorts of liberation workers. And we visually tied it all together with this gold kintsugi metaphor that is so popular right now. So this is permanent. If you ever find yourself in Bellevue, it's right behind the Whole Foods in Bellevue at the Wilburton station. And this is a commission that I did recently for the state of Washington. It's at Kimball Elementary School. And I thought to myself, why did they pick me to do a children's mural? Um, but it turned out to be fine. Even when I'm not explicitly using images about the incarceration, I can still tell a story that is about holding our cultures and still make references to the incarceration. And the kids saw it. There's barbed wire here. I've got some barrack imagery here. It might be a little hard for you to see on your screens, but um, this was a really fun thing to do because it was different and because I was able to um, collaborate with Joby Shimamura, who's Roger Shimamura, one of his daughters, and she did these beautiful glass pieces. And then my friend Mas Kikuchi, who's a woodworker, helped me with the wood. So it felt like a real Yonsei lift. Um, yeah, so this is a poster I'm working on, and I'm just really interested in people understanding the way that these stories are, to me, 100% connected. They might not have gone down in exactly the same way, but the end result is that families have been separated by rule of law in this country, and we keep doing it. So, this poster's in progress, and I'm gonna have an upcoming show that I'll share out to the community regarding that show. And then I think people know, the work that I do is on the organizing side is with Sudu and with our partner La Resistencia, which is in Tacoma. So there's always art and ceremony in our actions. for the healing of those who are affected and for ourselves, it's heavy work. We play the drums because people locked up on the inside can hear that sound, and so that's important. Um, a couple of people have died inside the Northwest Detention Center in the last 2 years, and there have been countless hunger strikes. It's just a remarkable human rights disaster that's going on there. Um, we're also monitoring flights that are coming in and out of the King County Airport, which is a taxpayer-funded airport. And we monitored 4 deportation flights last week. That was the most we'd seen. And these are flights that have like 170 plus people on them, and they're just moving around the country. We're trying to track where they're going. We're trying to um, keep family members up to date if they're looking for a certain person. It's really got to stop. Just a couple more images of things we've done out there and art I've helped out with. And then a lot of you have been on the Minidoka pilgrimage, which is sort of my heart. I I love to bring our community there to unwrap whatever people need to deal with. It's such complicated history. I think this is from a couple of years ago. Here's our whole crew. And here is the mighty volunteer pilgrimage committee from last year. Um, as you also know, we have done work to try to protect that site, and it seems like we're going to have to be continuously doing it. I think that the Lava Ridge project is almost dead, um, but I don't think all the ink is dried, and I think that we also are going to have to constantly be fighting off other large power projects. So it's quite a lot to deal with. And as an artist, I can only do so much, but I am proud of this grassroots campaign that we put together regarding stopping that wind farm. And I think we took that big company by surprise. We got a lot of press for this event. And once again, our survivors are stepping up to do the work. Now, I think I've gone on for quite a long time, Glenn. Do you want to just go ahead and jump in here?
Uh, I never want to follow you again.
I think I should stop because it's already been a half an hour.
Oh, what's this though?
Well, okay, okay. I'll just do a couple. This isn't,
Yeah, keep
well,
going.
I just wanted to say, like, being on pilgrimage, you meet so many people, and I met a survivor 2 years ago whose dad played for the Block 42 baseball team. And I said, "Oh, my grandfather played for that baseball team, but we can't find, or we've only have one picture of him on that team. He was, he had mental illness. He didn't like to be in pictures. And lo and behold, after I started talking with this gentleman, he came forth with all these pictures. And there's one of my grandfather and my Uncle Dale here that we had never seen before. So there's this treasures that come out of being on pilgrimage that I am so appreciative of.
Can you see the full slide? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. That's my son Gibby and his best friend Lily. I think this was at one of the detention center protests that Aaron showed. His name's Gibby. Um, my journey here kind of started when I lost my parents. I kind of came at it late. I would help my dad with ACRS walk for rice and stuff like that. But my wanting to learn more about my family happened kind of after I lost my dad and mom. I would go to Wapato, where my mom grew up, and just spend time with my cousins after my mom passed away. And that's my grandpa in the middle. He came over on a boat, 1907. He came from a samurai land owning family in Japan. His father was. He cleared land using horses in Wapato. And he, my cousins would tell me the Caucasian farmers would lease him land, and he'd spend months clearing this land with sage, get it ready for farming, and then when it was ready, they would cancel the lease. Um, so life was hard. They had to move around, and they found a honorable partner in the Yakama Nation who would lease them land honorably. Um, they had to deal with the alien land law, where in one day all the Japanese farmers were basically destroyed. Banks wouldn't loan them money. They had to deal with the KKK. They would come and shoot at my uh, grandfather's farm. So my mom remembers her brothers with rifles standing guard. A friend at church, Shig Nishida, he's 96, friend of my mom since second grade, um, remembers the KKK driving by and throwing dynamite at them. That happened to 5 farms in the valley. So they had to deal with that. Then 9066 came, and actually Wapato wasn't in the evacuation area. So the VFW and the Grange all lobbied the government to include Wapato so they could get their land, right? So geography, right? Then they were sent to camp and Heart Mountain. This is a piece I call the Nine Paper Flowers of Heart Mountain. There were 90 Nabas at Heart Mountain. I'm gonna play this. So I started creating these pieces I would call motion art, where I would create a piece and then tell the story over time. Um, when the family came back from Heart Mountain, the Yakama Nation leased them land, gave them keys to a truck and a tractor, and that's how we were able to survive. My grandma used to say that they were Mogudi Hyakusho or gopher farmers. That's how they survived. They almost had to farm underground in order to make it. It's my mom. That's my grandma's house. That's where we spent our summers. So that's my mom's side of the family. On my dad's side of the family, my cousin is author Satsuki Ina. And we've been working on a project since 2017 on the poetry of her father. No real project in mind except for I was visually interpreting the poems. from the writings. She has a book out called The Poet and the Silk Girl. Please read it. Um, it'll change your perspective of so much.
July 1945. Itaru Ina and wife Shizuko, along with their young children Kiyoshi and Satsuki, were held in the Tule Lake Segregation Center in Northern California. It was a maximum security concentration camp for those designated as disloyal for refusing to sign the so-called loyalty questionnaire in the affirmative. In protest of their unjust incarceration and the threat of drafting young Nisei men into U.S. military service, Itaru gave a short 5-sentence speech in which he demanded, "We should be treated equal to the free people." He was charged with sedition, separated from the family, and interned at Bismarck, North Dakota. This paper flower is an assemblage of one of 182 letters exchanged between Shizuko and Itaru during their separation. In the dust-laden, blistered landscape where flowers failed to grow, Shizuko and other women made paper flowers to fill the void for funerals and celebrations. Tagged with her assigned family number, Shizuko's flower captures the strength and determination of Japanese American incarcerees rising from their grief and despair.
It's always better when she describes it than if I describe it. So that's Shizuko's flower. That's her mom. And then I did visual interpretations of different poems. This one is entitled Tangled. That's her father, who was held in the Tule Lake jail. This is called the in the background here is the loyalty questionnaire. This piece is called Redacted. All the letters were censored by the people at the camp, the authority. So she would sew the letters into the lining of the clothing, and the clothing would be sent to her husband in jail, and then he could open up the lining and read the letters. Tule Lake. So as we were going through this journey with Satsuki, she would read her mom's diary to me, and then in one of the readings, it's her mom wrote, "I have to go now and make paper flowers for Mr. Wakasa's funeral." And so that led to the question, who is Mr. Wakasa? And that led to me being introduced to Nancy Ukai, and that was back in 2021 or 22. And learning the story of James Hatsuaki Wakasa, who was shot and killed while walking his dog. He was 63 at Topaz. And his Issei friends built a stone monument in his honor. And the authority and camp officials demanded that they destroy it. And instead of destroying it, the Issei buried it. And Nancy found a map in the National Archives 80 years later, which led Mary Farrell and Jeff Burton, two archaeologists, to follow the map and actually find where the monument was buried. So to us, it's the most important civil rights monument for the Japanese American history in camps. And please tune in to the Tadaima special at 6:30, and it goes through this whole history and tells the story of James Wakasa, and it brings you up to date on what's happening with the memorial stone. But there is so I started doing work with Nancy. So as in she would go to conferences and different events. So I started creating images for her to help educate people on who James Wakasa was. This piece was called The Last Walk. And superimposed in here is the map of that was followed by the two archaeologists to find the stone. Number 33177 was his number. He was 63, I think, 64. He was walking his dog when he was shot and killed. That's my cousin Kiyoshi, that's Satsuki's brother, and his wife Akemi, who has since become a ancestor. Yeah. And those are paper flower wreath and a cross that they made next to the Wakasa Memorial Stone. And that led to this piece, which was hanging at Wing Luke and was used in Day of Remembrance ceremonies. I won't go into this whole story about this piece, but I got pissed off and I made this t-shirt, and I didn't know Nancy was going to print it and have everybody wear it, but she did. And um, yeah, but that's the Wakasa committee there. Masako, Mari, I think Janice, yeah, the whole crew. And Jim, Nancy's husband. And it made another paper flower. This one's for Mr. Wakasa. And I started the bullet hole in the can, and I started using gold for blood because it was so precious. It's made out of the 9066 exclusion order. So there is an ongoing conflict with the Topaz Museum, and in response to that, Nancy and Dana Kawano, Dana's friend Yoshi Asai, they commissioned him to make a replica of the Wakasa Memorial. And it's made out of washi paper and rattan. And when the washi paper was actually applied to the rattan structure, it was put on by survivors and descendants of Topaz and other camps. Some of the survivors has since become ancestors. So it's very special. And its mission has changed. We were going to put Hunko slips paper on there where people would write their wishes and paste it onto the lantern. But I convinced Nancy that we should project film onto the lantern so that it can be a continuing story of chapters and tell more than just one story and keep evolving. And one thing you learn is that location is so important. So the mission we came up with was to take this lantern. There were 1,862 people who died while in camp. Some of the stories are just heartbreaking, like the baby who died in the arms of her mother on the train to Amanchi. Was it? Oh, and I think it was a Gila River, because it was so hot, and he died in its mother's arms on the way to camp. There was a member of the Wakasa Memorial Committee who's 24, whose grandfather's brother died of a botched lobotomy in camp. You know, there were 1,862 people who died in camp. There were 8 men who were shot and killed in camp. So it kind of like shatters this myth of, or this narrative of the camps being um, safe and orderly for the protection of the Japanese Americans and Japanese people of Japanese ancestry. They were not only traumatic, but they were also deadly. Um, so what we do with this lantern is we take it to the different locations where men were shot and killed. This isn't the actual location. We actually take it to the location where this is Tule Lake. That's Castle Rock in the back. Uh, Shoichi Okamoto was 31 years old. He was shot and killed at Tule Lake. Um, Later that night at 11 o'clock, we took it to the actual location where he was shot and killed, and we projected a film that honored him on the spot where his blood was spilled. Same with Topaz. That's where James Wakasa was killed. Manzanar, Kanagawa, and James Ito, who was only 17 years old. So, you know, with the only guy I had a picture of, they were all 8 men. They were bachelor, a lot of them. A lot of them were 60, in their 50s, some were 30. Kanagawa and Ito at Manzanar, they were only 17 and 20. So I only had one picture of Shoichi Okamoto, who was 30. So that's why their back is turned to you, because I had no idea what they look like. But and then for each location, I'll make a piece of art, a piece of artwork that and I do this to create a founding piece for each location. And then what I do for the motion art or the film that's projected, I take these elements and present them over time to create their story. This one's called Beautiful Weeds. These are weeds I found at Tule Lake in front of the jail. Um, and I looked up the definition of weeds, and it's like plants that grow where they're unwanted or valued, but they still thrive. Sounded familiar. So this one was for Shoichi Okamoto at Tule Lake. Manzanar, um, yeah, I mean, what you learn when you go to these different places is how they use geography as a weapon. There's a reason why Manzanar is close to the Mojave Desert. We were only there for a day. Kimiko was there. We were there for a day, and this was the first time we had an audience for the projection. And Dana Kawano, Yoshi, Nancy, along with Jeff Burton, created an environment for the projection where Kanagawa and Ito were shot and killed, and 10 other people were wounded at the same spot. So we invited people to come, and Manzanar site is 15, 20 minutes away from the nearest town, and it started at like 8:30. So you really had to make an effort to come back out. And it was freezing. Uh, it was freezing and just relentless, and but you couldn't dare complain, right? But it was cold. So for the Manzanar piece, I started, instead of doing one piece, I did many pieces to create the video. And uh, yeah, I think I did like 30 different pieces that went into the video. Katsuji Kanagawa came from a farming community, so that's why he's in a field. The kanji on the tower says soul consoling tower. That seemed perfect for, I use it in the film Dust and I use it in different things, the use of incense, so forth. Here is a short film I made of the tribute ceremony at Manzanar. This was the first time we actually had people. Usually it was just me, Nancy, and Emiko, or me, Nancy, and somebody else filming. So, we figured, hey, if we get 2 people come, that's twice as many as we usually have. But, over 80 people came. So, um, and here's what it was.
Good evening. Today, we gather to honor James Katsuji Kanagawa and James Hiroshi Ito in the very place where their lives were cut short. This evening, we also gather in prayer and silence to not only recall the killings of 2 young men, but also to heal this place, the place where their blood steeped into the ground. The large lantern, the Wakatsa Spirit Stone lantern, brings light to the darkness of these unjust killings of Japanese Americans in various incarceration camps. So as we console the spirits of James Katsuji Kanagawa and James Hiroshi Ito tonight, let their spirits guide us in our enduring quest to alleviate suffering. And as we protect their memory, they will protect us.
So that's what the films come out. And Akemi is Akemi Ina, who passed away. And then Aaron invited us to go to Minidoka, and this was a piece put together. It's kind of like a postcard. But what we did at Minidoka, how are we doing for time? We okay? Okay. Um, was we did something we did went there to honor the people who had died at the corn at the cemetery, which is now a cornfield, and uh, we placed the lantern as near as we could to the cemetery, and we projected onto that. Again, there was only like about 12 of us there, because we were on this farmer's land. But later that night, there was an obon that Aaron and them have every year there. And since it is, the definition of obon is, to honor your ancestors, what I did was edited together the photographs of Bill Mambo and the footage from Heart Mountain, obon by Eiichi Edward Sakayue. Um, and then that night we put the lantern in the middle. I'll just play this. Yeah, so the idea there was to, um, well, dance. Um, this is the last thing I want to show. It's this grew organically. Um, I did a 15-second motion art piece, sent it to poet Brandon Shimoda. He wrote a poem, sent it back. That led me to keep adding. So that 15-second piece is now a 13-minute film. I want to play you the trailer for it. Um, Again, I have to thank the Takahashi Foundation because they funded the Wakasa Spirit Stone, and that enabled me to go to all of these different sites and photograph weeds, sage, experience the wind and uh, the land, which all went into this piece. So what would happen is I'd send an edit. We worked on this for 2 months, 2.5 months. I'd send an edit to Brandon. He had a live Google Doc. Every morning there would be new poems. I'd select some and then I would visually interpret them. So this is the trailer. I'm really proud of this piece. He's pretty happy with it. We're looking for suggestions on how to show this, where to show it, but it's called Dust. Um,
When the dust blows through camp, I'm reminded of being at the bottom of the sea, trying to keep up with the waves that rolled us nightly to sleep. I dreamed of a desert in bloom, the scent of each flower, each petal, an eyelid, pressed into a vision that burns away. I dreamed of a river of faces hanging over the water, clouds swimming about to pop. Then I woke up.
so that is the character in the white t-shirt is supposed to be James Ito, who was 17 years old when he was shot and killed. He was the only information I could find on him that Biff found for me was that he won a tetherball contest at 13 and was a good baseball player. So the baseball cap, t-shirt, running, because his story was cut short before it could be told. So yeah, so the final dust is 8 poems, and um, can't wait for you to see it. That's it. We did it so we don't have to talk too much longer.
We don't, unless anyone has any questions.
How do you tell if they have questions?
Well, David had some nice comments in the chat that you should look at regarding your work.
Oh, David, you were there. It was cold, huh? Freezing. Yeah, I think we were there from like 7 to 11, and you didn't dare complain, right? Thanks for coming back for that. Oh, David, I remember you.
Alrighty, any last call for questions before we let you all go have your dinner? Thanks for being here. Oh, Jen, are you gonna ask something?
Yeah, I hope it's okay that I'm asking out loud.
Oh, hi, Jen.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for sharing your work. It was, I'm always so moved. So thank you. I guess I was wondering, if either of you wanted to say a little bit more about why you choose to use art as a way of, intervening in really important discussions right now. So not just about, the Japanese American incarceration history that passed, but also Aaron thinking about your work and of course you too, Glenn, but like what do you think art can do that, some other mediums or outlets might not be able to do and, in intervening in these different discussions?
Well, I mean, I don't have a choice. Like I'm a visual person, and I'm lucky that I have had a chance to make art my second career. I started as a graphic designer, and I found that quite late in my life as well. So I'm just running as fast as I can. I understand as being a person who learns visually, that there are different ways that people absorb information, and I've really found that as I said, these images are so powerful, and we know that every movement needs um color and words and illustrations to just like to back up the energy, that we need all types of communication to put forward the messages that we're trying to send. And it's this very powerful way to memorialize those that we've lost, that we saw time and time again in Glenn's work and also in mine. um yeah, so hopefully that's a little bit of an answer. Do you want to add on to that, Glenn?
Um, I'm an I've learned I'm an experiential learner. Put me in a regular conference speech and I have a hard time. Um, I have to be moved emotionally, I think, and uh, I'm just trying to find communication my way and how I'm moved that I hope other people are also, you know. And art, I've said this before, but art has the power to disrupt amnesia, you know. You know, I mean, everything that's happening now, um, I think art is a very powerful medium that can create emotion, that can create movement. I think we're done. think we're done.
Glenn wants to be done.
Well, everybody's got to go to the 6:30 Wakasa Memorial session.
Yes, it's going to be very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for sharing all your art with us. Made me a little emotional.
Good.
It did. You got me here.
You know, Kimiko, in that Obon piece, that was at Heart Mountain. So when I first saw the video, I was looking for my mom
Mm.
and our family maybe in the crowd, you know. That's why I kind of got emotional there. It's kind of like,
Yeah, it touches deep feelings. You don't even know that they're there, but art
yeah.
helps them come to the surface. So thank you for sharing. Oh, actually, David also has a question about websites. Do you guys want to put your websites in the chat?
Oh, sure. I really need to redo mine, but I go by Purple Gate in the spaces.
Why Purple Gate?
Because that's what Shigaki means. Wisteria covered gate.
Ah,
Yeah. Now you know.
I
Now
can't
we
do
know.
that for me because Mitsui means the cows are dying. Just kidding. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay, well, on that note, since we don't want to have Glenn's comedy act that's going to come next. Thank you all for attending, and this recording will be available on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. We'll send a link out to everybody who's registered so that you can share it out with your family and friends. And look forward to seeing everybody in about an hour for our town hall with the Wakasa Memorial Committee. So
6:30, be there.
6:30 Pacific.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.